Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is 6:06 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Making sense of the news. I am Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor this week. Good Monday morning to one and all. Sitting in with Julie Gunlaw. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning. Got to turn my mic on there. Sorry about that. Good morning.
All of us. Good morning. So, well, we got to listen. We got a busy hour, all kinds of things to talk about. Busy show today. We're going to be joined later on by Joe DeGenova as he joins us every Monday morning talking about the Trump indictment, Hunter Biden. We're going to be joined by Eric Baxter from the Beckett Fund at 8:05 to talk about the Montgomery County parents fighting back against being denied an opt-out and the Montgomery County schools going back today. And, of course, Suparna Dutta is going to be joining us at 6:35 this hour. It's school time, so we're going to be talking about schools with the most important piece of advice we can give you is you got to pay attention.
That's right.
If you're not paying attention, they're going to get things by you.
Yeah.
So listen, let's start here. In other news, in woke news, we've got Alice Cooper.
Yeah, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
So this is the second, actually, not just Alice Cooper, but also last week, Carlos Santana came in for flack at a concert in New Jersey talking about there being only 2 days. And this is what we were talking about in terms of in terms of back to school and kids being impressionable. Alice Cooper loses a cosmetics deal after blasting transgenderism as a fad.
Yeah, so I guess at a concert he gave some. Do we have the cut? What he said?
We have him talking about Millie Walker being the good land, which is something that I was using quite a bit last week. But he essentially said at this concert that transgenderism is a fad, and this is coming from Alice Cooper, who. Listen, Alice Cooper wore lots of stage makeup, was very flamboyant as a glam rocker. But speaking a little bit of truth and losing a deal on this, right? And cancel culture isn't real.
Yeah. So I guess this cosmetic company called Vampire Cosmetics.
Yes.
Had him. It's funny. I know that Alice Cooper wears eye makeup and wears makeup in general, but I don't think he's a great example of what your makeup should look like. So I do find it kind of funny that there's a makeup company that used him as a spokesperson. However, they have now abandoned him because he said transgenderism is a fad. And look, we know by the numbers, just last week they came out with new data saying transgender surgeries are up 3 times. I mean, this is 100% a trend and a social contagion, mostly occurring with girls. We know that people are getting top surgery. We know that people are getting bottom surgeries. It is definitely a very, very dangerous trend. So he said nothing controversial. Right. But yeah, he's lost a cosmetic gig now as spokesperson.
And it's a situation, again, you talk about parents paying attention. And these are not conservative parents who are sort of seeing this and freaking out about it. We've known folks. I have a couple of different examples of people I know who, they are progressives and lifelong progressives. And then all of a sudden, one of their kids comes to them and says that I'm trans, and they're completely gobsmacked by this. It is, it can be incredibly shocking. Now, listen, I don't know about you. I want to sort of shift gears to look at this. I've got kids girls who are in sororities. This is one of my favorite stories over the weekend. This out of the College Fix. The Sisters of Kappa Kappa Gamma at the University of Wyoming. They wanted to, as all sororities do, they want to have some control over who could join their sorority. They were being forced in the University of Wyoming, no less, to admit a male, possibly admit a male as a sorority member. And so they filed a lawsuit, and the judge denied their request and says, no, you have to.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry,
this is a male. This is a male-bodied student who, identifies as a woman, dresses up as a woman, but is definitely intact and male-bodied. And these women have to have this male walking around their sorority house, while they're coming back from a shower, maybe only have a towel around them. He has these young women. IWF has actually done a little bit of work on this issue.
Oh, yes, of course.
And these women have reported that he has become aroused in front of them. The girl, he's huge. This male is a part of the sorority now, was admitted, is very large. He's a very large male. And so these girls have said, I feel uncomfortable. I feel unsafe. And it used to be that sororities were safe places for women on campus. I mean, that's the whole point of them. Like, you live in a house with other women. There's usually, there's some sort of guard at the front door. So it really is troubling that this judge, I've read some about this judge that says he's very progressive. So not entirely shocked by this result, this ruling, but I hope they will appeal.
Well, I'm sure they're going to. I mean, this is
It's also really important to say that the sorority Kappa Kappa Gamma is not supporting these girls.
Yes.
They, as the sort of headquarters of Kappa Kappa Gamma, they have said that this male has got to be accepted into the sorority. So you've got these 6 young women that are part of the sorority at the University of Wyoming who are opposed to this, but their headquarters, the national Kappa Kappa Gamma, is working against them. That's amazing to me.
Did you go Greek in college?
No.
See, I didn't go Greek either, but my wife was in a sorority, and I knew lots of people in sororities. And what astounds me, and it's funny because I know that all sororities have changed in many, many ways. I do know that at my own college, that Kappa Kappa Gamma was the very smart Southern preppy girl sorority, and that has not changed. And so the idea that all of a sudden Kappa Kappa Gamma National is going to force, chapters at places like the University of Wyoming to admit listen, I'm a guy of large carriage, so I feel that I have authority to make fat jokes. But a gentleman of larger carriage who identifies as a woman into their
matter.
sorority,
Look, it could be Dylan Mulvaney. It could be Dylan Mulvaney weighs 30 pounds, soaking wet, and it's still not appropriate to have a male-bodied person in a sorority where girls are changing clothes and taking showers and using the restroom. I mean, this is insanity.
Yes.
And it is all being allowed because people don't want to hurt feelings or don't. And again, I think that's a large part of it. I think there's sort of this idea of like, oh, let's be nice. This is dangerous. This is a dangerous precedent being set.
Agreed wholeheartedly. Listen, we will continue in just a moment, but first it is 5:15 a.m. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes.
WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939. News Talk 105.9.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
We are back. I am Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor this week, along with Julie Gunlock, my longtime friend and colleague. And Julie, I don't understand this. I don't know when it happened. When did we, as a global society, suddenly become unable to define what a woman is?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a recent thing. It's very recent.
We've got this situation down in Australia, right? Listen, it's the land down under. Their first female prime minister. I mean, this is the astounding thing to me, right? Is that we used to be able to celebrate the concept of the first female prime minister, the first female chief executive of a nation, whether it's Margaret Thatcher or Julia Gillard down in Australia, or whether it was Indira Gandhi in India. I mean, all of these women who apparently are no longer able to define what a woman is. Michael, let's listen to what Julia Gillard had to say.
Hello, my name is Biddy O'Loughlin. Thank you for holding this event. What is a woman? And do you agree with Queensland's Attorney General Minister for Women, Sharon Fentiman, that trans women are women, and with the UK's leader of the Labor Party, Sir Keir Starmer, that some women have...
Look, I'm very happy to answer your question, but I do worry that And I should just say I spend around half of each year in the UK. And in the UK, this has turned into a kind of got you parlour game. So if you're listening to the radio, you literally, there'll be some person on there from London City Council who's trying to tell you why the traffic's not going to flow well that day. And the journo will be saying, and can you tell me what a woman is? To try and create these gotcha moments. And I think we've just got to move away from all of that and just come at this once again from first principles.
Julie, I'm happy to answer your question, except I'm not going to answer your question. But I'm going to give you a lecture as to why I'm not going to answer your question while still saying that I answered your question.
Yeah, and also I love how she's like, this has just become a gotcha moment, right? By who? Who's making it a gotcha moment? It's a significant question. We've got significant issues out there related to the safety of women. And you're not going to address it because the truth is she's a coward. She does not want to address this because she does not want to get attacked by the trans
she doesn't want
mobs.
to get attacked by the men who are pretending to be women.
Yes, the men who hate women, who violently hate women, and who are often sort of allied with Antifa. That she's trying to avoid this.
It's funny, right? Because I am not a big fan of radical feminism. I believe in women and women's empowerment and women's abilities to do a great many things, right? But feminism and radical feminism, especially, I'm not a big fan of. On the other hand, I at least have a great deal of respect for the honesty of what they call the TERFs, the trans exclusionary radical feminists, because at least they're honest about wanting to protect women to the highest degree. Right, and recognizing that there is something inherently destructive in men who hate women, pretending to be women who want to go and get included by women. I mean, it is.
I have no problem being called a TERF because I honestly think it is absolutely revolting, the idea that men can just walk into women's spaces. And we have seen the results right here in this area in Loudoun County. When you allow young men to go into women's bathrooms, women are harmed. And we've seen this with locker rooms where fully intact men are changing their clothes in front of young women. It is because they get a sexual thrill from it.
Of course.
And the idea that our society is not appalled by this, and in fact it's being allowed, and these 6 sorority girls are being demonized for going to the courts with their concerns, is it just we live in a clown world. We live in we live in the upside down.
And then there is something incredibly, we're talking about the protection part of it, but then there's also the caricature of women. And you've got Dylan Mulvaney now winning an award, something called the Streamy Awards, which I guess that makes sense.
Okay,
there.
but we should explain the Streamy Awards. It's literally people who are on TikTok.
Yes.
And other social media platforms.
Yeah,
oh my God.
It's a bit past me, the Streamy Awards. Don't know what it is. All I do know is that for this gross caricature of what it means to be a woman in America, this person who has made huge amounts of made and lost, because they've lost endorsements over this, getting awarded for winning the breakout creator at the Streamy Awards, declaring she would celebrate the win by cracking open a beer. This is... listen, we're not that we're going to go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, but I've been talking quite a bit about there are folks out there who are doing what they can to manipulate sociology around the world in order to turn us against each other. This is yet another example of how the world gets gaslit, right? Because we hold up this guy who is doing this gross caricature of what it means to be a woman. He gets celebrated on TikTok. Or on the Streamy Awards, gets huge endorsements, and yet this is really like the Emperor's New Clothes, or the Emperor's New Clothes moment, right? Where we're the ones who are pointing out that the Emperor is naked, and yet and yet we're the ones who are crazy about this.
Dylan Mulvaney is actually being invited to speak about what it's like to be a woman. Let's not make any mistake here. Dylan Mulvaney is getting these opportunities, because people think that he's in some way, speaking out against transphobia and hate and all that. And he puts it in his speeches, but he did it just at the Streamy Awards. I can't even believe we're talking about the Streamy Awards.
Yes, the Streamies.
Yes. But it is, again, yet another example of just how crazy our world has gone. And it's very recent, Andrew. If
Right.
you had talked to me about this 4 years ago, if you had talked to me about the Bud Light controversy, 3, maybe 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed this.
Right.
I wouldn't have believed this. But, it is the effort to normalize this kind of behavior.
Listen, if you told me 3 years ago that we were going to have a senior Department of Energy official who was going to be a bald man with a mustache who wears a dress, I would have said you're crazy. But this is where we are. Listen, we've got so much more to get to. Right now, it's 6:23 here on WMA.
Now,
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning. It is 6:37 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. Happy Monday to all of you. I'm Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor, sitting alongside Julie Gunlock on this bright and shiny Monday morning. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
So we're going to be joined by Joe DeGeneva in the next hour. I got to talk to him about the Trump indictment, Hunter Biden news. Eric Baxter from the Beckett Fund, he's going to be joining us in 8:05 because it's back to school in Montgomery County today. We're working on getting Suparna Dutta on the air. In the meantime, Julie, it's funny. Anytime I read about TJ, the Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, I am reminded of the fact, a little known story. So I'm a contemporary of the first graduating class of TJ, which was 1989. So you can all do the math to figure out how old I am. My incoming freshman class at William and Mary, out of TJ's graduating class of 360, 60 of them were in my freshman class at William and Mary. And so I knew a lot. I loved the TJ. Listen, we had so many people in my
Is that how
class.
did you pay TJ students to write your
Yes,
finals?
I did. No,
Yes.
to do my math for me.
That's your math.
Let's but there's one of these things where they were randomly being assigned rooms with each other, which is just wild. Let's bring on Suparna Dutta. She's a Fairfax County mom. She's a member of the Coalition for TJ.
Yeah.
They filed a petition with the Supreme Court last week asking them to hear a case about the TJ admissions. Let's talk about this, Suparna. What happened with the petition last week?
Yeah, so good morning and a happy Monday. Thank you for having me on. So, yes, this has been quite a journey. It's hard to believe, but it's been more than 2 years ago when the Coalition for TJ challenged Fairfax County in the federal court. And the Fourth Circuit Court's opinion, which was earlier this year, May, which we think, and we believe permits racial balancing through so-called facially race-neutral means. And what does racial balancing really mean? An admissions occurs when a school seeks to admit an approximate proportion of each racial group based on the group's representation in a larger population. And we believe it's a question of national importance, and the Supreme Court's review is necessary to determine whether the Fourth Circuit's decision was contrary to the Constitution's equal protection guarantee. We have filed our petition to the Supreme Court, and the Fairfax County School Board has until September 22 to file their response if they choose to do so. And then when the Supreme Court's term begins in October, they will consider. And we are optimistic and we're hopeful that they are going to take up our case.
Yeah, I remember when the Fourth Circuit reversed the lower court's ruling, it was really depressing. But I remember folks like you and Asra Nomani saying, look, this is just another step that we have to take in order to get this resolved. You're being represented by Pacific Legal Foundation, yes, which is a great organization. What are your thoughts on, how this will find? Do you think the Supreme Court will accept this? Do you think that you'll get the resolution that you want to this? I know this has been a long journey, but what are your predictions?
You're right, Julie. This is we're represented by Pacific Legal Foundation, and we are immensely grateful that they would choose to support us in this civil rights issue. We believe that that in America we need to look at the underlying motivations of people, not allow people to hide behind proxy discrimination. It is a very important case because it deals with so-called proxy discrimination, which is the use of so-called race-neutral criteria to mask racially motivated and racially discriminatory efforts. Coalition for TJ believes proxy discrimination is modern redlining. Redlining used geography to discriminate against blacks in lending without actually saying no blacks need apply for loans. In the case of TJ, instead of saying no Asian people need apply, you isolate the middle schools that are heavily Asian. You're limiting the number of people, Asian Americans, who can gain enrollment. And it's been very odd that, some people say that it is race neutral. The admission standards and policies that were employed were race neutral, but that's just very wrong because from the very beginning, the school administrators, Fairfax County School Board, have been very open in wanting to racially balance the school. And you may remember when we got the private text messages between the school board members.
Yeah.
One school board member said, "New admissions proposal will whiten our schools and kick our Asians." And another one replied, "Of course it is. They're discriminated in this process." And then that same school board member wrote, "There has been an anti-Asian feeling underlying some of this. Hate to say it, LOL." So from the very beginning, even the school board, the TJ principal in summer of 2020 told us how TJ lamented how the TJ did not represent the Fairfax County. And their actions were primarily about racially balancing the school. And we believe that this is such an important question of national importance right now, because coming right on the heels of the Harvard case, this is the next important case to take. So we are very optimistic that this is going to take, and especially what is happening right now is that now college officers, such as in the University of Michigan, they're describing what Fairfax County did with TJ as a way to circumvent the Supreme Court's decision in the Harvard case. And so they're saying, well, this is one way you can do it, but just make sure you don't get caught saying what you're really trying to do.
Yeah, don't put it in text messages. In other words, Suparna Dutta, listen, unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Take care. We've got more coming up at 6:44 on WMAL. So a couple of pieces of sad news on a couple of different fronts. Some noted passings over the weekend, Julie Gunlock.
Yeah.
Obviously, first off, I'm going to talk about Joe the Plumber. I met Sam Wurzelbacher, otherwise known as Joe the Plumber, in 2009 at the very first Tea Party in D.C.
Wow.
In February of 2009 on Lafayette Square, along with I wasn't the organizer. I did teach the organizers how to use a megaphone, but they had brought Joe the Plumber out, and I met him for the first time. A lovely guy.
Yeah.
Passed away very young, much too young, of pancreatic cancer, leaving a wife. And in fact, folks, go on to Twitter and a lot of, or X or whatever it's called right now, and a lot of folks have tweeted out about this. Joe's family needs help. You can go and help him. But as someone who
just to really quickly, he also has very young children.
Yes, of course.
Very young children, elementary age. So, he has one older child, and then he has several younger children. And I was told that the mom homeschools. So, if you can, we'll tweet out that fundraiser for him. Yeah,
it's a situation in which we need more of this, and we need more Joe the Plumbers out there.
Yeah,
he sort of led the way in terms of everyday
Remember
Americans.
The left who keeps saying resist, right?
Yes.
And like to fight truth, Yeah, all this gobbledygook.
Yes.
Yeah, you get it. He did that.
Right.
You know.
Right. You know, it's a situation in which he was one man, and I don't like saying average Americans. I do like saying everyday Americans. You know, an everyday working class guy who stood up and said, you know something, there is something fundamentally wrong with what is going on in the world. You know, Barack Obama gets elected in 2008. He promises hope and change, but it's hope and change at the sacrifice of Americans like me, and I am not going to stand for it.
Yeah.
And so we need to be looking to him as someone who should be celebrated as we are celebrating him today, and whose family ought to be supported. I'm sorry, Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we talked to Joe the Plumber in March of this year about his cancer diagnosis. So our thoughts and prayers go out to his wife. Again, 3 young children. And again, I think he had another child. It's a bit older, but just a tragic loss. And he wasn't the only one.
No, absolutely. And of course, I don't know if you ever watched The Price is Right. When
Are you kidding? I'm a Gen X kid. I'm a Gen X kid.
So
what?
This was a passing. I'm the nerd. Actually, I watched some of The Price is Right, but I watched other stuff as well. But Bob Barker passed at 99. Of course, the big meme going out over the weekend. He got as close to 100 as possible without going over, which is good stuff. I know we shouldn't be chuckling about this. Thank you. But just I mean, you're right.
A 35-year stint as host is the new Price is Right. The host of The Price is Right.
And then the new Price is Right.
4 decades, and then 35 is the new Price. Gosh, wow.
It's quite, you know, it's funny. I am reminded, one of my favorite books was Gorky Park by Martin Cruz Smith. And in that book, he talks about, this takes place in the 1970s, and he talks about the protagonist coming to America, Arkady Renko. And the first thing he does is he turns on the TV in this hotel in New York, and there's this game show, and he can't understand what the game show is because it's essentially a bunch of folks listing out, guessing at the prices of things.
Right.
And he remarked about how this is sort of the quintessential American game show.
Yeah.
Because it's all about prices, but a pioneer.
What I find funny is how sometimes they'll show The Price is Right, and they'll show like a superstar that, you know, when they were first starting out in Hollywood was on The Price is Right, as an audience or like as a participant. And so, you know, you'll get these like massive stars, you know, actors that were at one point, you know, competing on The Price is Right. So it's pretty funny. I feel like a lot of people in Hollywood start off.
Listen, never go. I will tell you something. Never go down the rabbit hole of watching old videos of celebrities on the dating game, because that will freak you out too. I mean, Steve Martin and Tom Selleck, and my two favorites, Andy Kaufman as his foreign man character, Laka Gravis from Taxi, but also Pee Wee Herman as Pee Wee Herman on the dating game from the 19th. So again, Pee Wee and the late great Paul Rubens, all of these people now I'm talking about.
Well, I will say it is very sad. This is one pass. I would say both of them, both Joe the Plumber and Bob Barker, huge parts of pop culture, and sort of at least, you know, I feel like I grew up with Bob Barker, so this definitely makes you feel kind of old. I have to say.
A whole new generation getting exposed to him on Happy Gilmore, which is his greatest acting role ever. Listen, it's 6:53 here on O'Connor and Company, WMAL.